All right. Look, it is a Friday morning, August 15th, halfway through August. Look, we're we got, 8 days away, Brendan, the first game over in Dublin, Ireland. Kansas State playing over there.
It's tough for me to get excited about that one.
I know, but it would be fun to go to Dublin. Hey, Rob Browne in Memphis, Brendan Martin in Ocala, Florida, executive producer extraordinaire. A lot to cover today. College Football Roundtable. We welcome nationally acclaimed writer, love him, man, Mike Griffith of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Dog Nation. Been doing this for a minute, about 30 years down here in the South. His takes on college football are interesting, intriguing, and they will make you get out of your comfort zone. Take a picture of the QR code with your phone. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and throughout the day. You wouldn't believe all the reels and everything that Brendan is putting out there all over social media. Follow us and share the show. And let's get started, man. Welcome everybody aboard. Frank Duffy in Tuscany. Great view right there. Doug Dean in Birmingham. Just as beautiful. Guys, I'll be with
no, it's not.
14 of us up
no.
there. No. But 14
you
of us.
Under promise and over deliver.
Yeah, well, but it is beautiful in Vestavia and Mountain Brook, those areas. A lot of hills. But we got the Alabama gang coming up on the Spring River. We'll be trout fishing today. They're heading to Rockbridge right now, Doug. But I stayed behind to ensure we have good reception on this show, and I'm fired up about it, and I'll catch a lot of fish when I get up there. Guys, before Mike comes on, your takes on what's happening. There's so much stuff happening so fast every day. Start with Doug and then go to Frank.
This is that point, really, it was more than a week ago, where we can all agree, start the damn football games. People are making shit up. Excuse my French, FCC. People are making stuff up because they got to have content in this 24/7 news cycle. And I'll get to the latest dumb one. I'm dumber for having read Matt Hayes' USA Today, in which the article's title is "Time to Admit Hugh Freeze's Experiment Won't Work at Auburn." Now, Matt, it might be time in mid-October. I think you're a wee bit early on that.
Yeah.
ESPN led with Freeze throwing his visor, getting upset at something to practice. You talk about a slow news day.
Yeah.
And look, last week, we thought, from the news of all my compadres, I thought Garrett Nussmeier lost his leg in a combine accident.
Yeah. An auger. You thought he got caught in an auger, man.
So, we need to get we need to get to the games. I'm ready for some reality.
Well,
at least it's taken the place of NIL talk a little bit.
Absolutely. And Doug, if we can go the entire show with not talking on NIL and the transfer portal,
I'm down.
Both of you get a steamer pack of crystals on me. I owe a lot of steamer pack. But no, Doug,
I'm down.
I'm with you. And I tell you what, the Matt Hayes, maybe in mid-October, but wow, a coach getting mad and throwing a visor. I think, Steve Spurrier's done that before. You name me a coach. If you put a camera on every coach in practice, they're damn near fist fights with sometimes assistants and players. You know what? Doug, you nailed it. It's
and the thing is, to be fair and a little bit balanced, I'm generally more of a flamethrower and provocateur because it helps. It helps clickbait, doesn't it, Rob? Matt, your guest about to join us soon is no stranger to how that works.
Yeah.
But honestly, sometimes Coach Freeze, to be fair, is a little bit his own worst enemy because I think he heard us all bitch and complain that all we ever hear is coach speak. And, boy, he's not doing coach speak. He talks about he lets his assistants, Kent Austin and Nix, go on and talk about, who calls the plays? And I know what they meant, but it came out like, on first down, I call the plays, Nix. On second down, Ken Austin calls the plays. And depending on third down, Freeze calls. That is nonsense. We know better.
Yeah.
But you can't tell the real story. It's about 8 paragraphs to talk about how that process really works, but from the booth to the sidelines. I tell people, if you really want to know if you've got anxiety about is Freeze calling plays, look for the Waffle House laminated play sheet. If that is in Freeze's hands and he's staring at it, I promise you he's calling every single play, but he's seeking input from his brain trust. Duh. And it's for some reason Freeze's normal coach behavior is worthy of flammable articles, but the same behavior, throwing visors down in practice, if it happens in Baton Rouge, it's just not news, Duff.
Well, hey, and you'll know that he's calling the plays because you can actually see where he's blacked out the old Malzahn plays off the Waffle House.
Yeah.
Here's
an interesting thing. We on Wednesday's show, the Auburn Undercover show with Ronnie Sanders and Kevin Skarbinski and Doug, you were at the quarterback club meeting. Ronnie talked about what it was like when he had the headsets on with Terry Bowden. You'd have Terry Bowden, Rick Trickett on running plays, different people's inputs, but ultimately it was Terry Bowden that made that call. And I think, I had a young fella that I've mentored and still continue to, who was a manager at Auburn 08, 9, 10, and 11. And he said, if people could hear what is said on those headsets, it would be beyond XXX rated. And that's just the way it is.
Like Hugh Freeze is working blue, the only guy.
Yeah.
Can you imagine Barry Switzer in the 70s in Oklahoma? Hey, look, I watched the first 20 minutes of On Any Given Saturday, the new Netflix special, and Brian Kelly dropped 10 F-bombs without even a Southern accent.
Yeah.
I mean, these are all adults.
The humanity.
These kids have heard it all. I mean, and look, if it gets my offensive line to play a little better, then he dropped an F-bomb or two and put a foot up one of them's ass, I'm okay with that. I don't have a problem with that at all. Go.
Rob, you've got some high IQ people who tune into the show. We see their comments throughout. And let me give a snippet, and y'all can add to it if you want, of what really happens. And I got this mainly from a coach friend of mine who's coached at heavily at high schools, a little bit college. This is what's really happening game week in Auburn, in most every college, probably every one. On game planning, for example, Derek Nix will have the responsibility to study and prepare for first downs. Yeah. He creates a list of what's called openers. They're general and basically page one of the playbook. Because you come up down a distance, if you get the ball at your own 20 versus midfield, it's a big difference in what plays you feel comfortable calling. And that's part of game planning. He's mostly focused on runs, so some play action and RPO stuff after watching a lot of film of the opponent. Then a GA is taking notes, and some lackey is inputting the data into a computer so it can be filtered by line of scrimmage, right or left hash, time on the clock, down and distance. And you go through all these filters, and that translates into the Waffle House play sheet. Yeah. So they can quit, and speed matters. He wants to run some tempo. A lot of coaches do now. So part of what they're striving for is to get all that thinking behind them, time-consuming seconds, so that they see what's coming and they have a pretty good idea what they want to call. And then not only that, with Hugh Freeze, if he's really running RPO, guess who's really calling the play? The defense.
Sure.
Their alignment is sort of forcing you to go where they are not. So the idea, fans need to be smart, and some reporters, frankly, need to be smarter and realize that Derek Nix can't give a 30-minute seminar on what I just described, because it's too much information. So the way it comes out is really Hugh saying, you get first down, you get second, and I get third down. Is everybody
Whose turn
happy?
is it?
That's just not how it's working. But if people want to think that about Freeze, great. I will say this, and let's ask your next guest this. I'm fascinated about if Auburn should find itself in the coach hiring market again, and well, we will again, hopefully not soon. But I want a defensive-minded coach, and I'll tell you why. You hire an offensive guru, and he can't help himself. They want to call plays. Guess what? There's about a 3 or 4 year cycle that his system is no longer going to work well, and he's going to have to hire an OC that is on, emerging as a system. And that coach is going to be unable to let go of play calling, so it's dysfunctional. There's a reason Kirby Smart and Saban have had the kind of success they have. They're defensive.
It's easier on the defensive side. Nick Saban is the greatest defensive coordinator that you could have in a and he even had defensive coordinators throughout the years at LSU and at Alabama.
Well, if you go back what Ellis Johnson said about Brother Oliver, Bill Oliver, the man from Epps, Alabama. We lost him a few months ago. Loved it. I think he's the greatest defensive coordinator ever. He would stand in the backfield with the quarterbacks and study the defender's eyes, and that's how he taught. And the smarter coaches, Steve Spurrier, everyone, we know he's a great offensive, the evil genius, whatever. He's incredible, but he knew how to attack a defense because he studied both sides of the ball. Same thing with Lane Kiffin. Don't underestimate his knowledge of defense. When Monty Kiffin is your dad, you're going to learn a lot just by being around him. And I think, and I'll tell you another coach that they've locked him in, Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri. I mean, they've got more 11-win seasons since 2013 than all but Oklahoma and Alabama and Georgia in the SEC. That's more than Texas, Auburn, Florida, LSU. Say what you want. They just put $300 million into stadium improvements. They've got Brendan's right. They've got the Kroenke money from Denver back at Missouri. That's a lot of money. And I don't think they're slowing down. And they've got Ahmad Hardy, this running back that transferred from ULM, where John Hartwell just resigned. This guy, I don't know if he's going to be the impact of Cody Schrader, but he might be faster, guys. I mean, people don't pay attention to Missouri. They're out on the western flank on I-70. But Doug, you can make a pretty good case.
And people forget that Kroenke brought a championship ring to the Denver Nuggets, which they had not had one before, which was not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
So rebuilding and focusing on coaches and players, and I feel like that, because they're involved with Arsenal and several other things and sports entities, and he was one of the very, him and what was it? Yes Sports were the only two TV networks owned by the owner of the teams that owned their own network. So when we were Altitude Sports and Entertainment, which still was, they took over for Fox and all this. We were owned by the owner, which changed a lot of things and how reporting was done and all that stuff. But it really changed the dynamic of ownership as far as controlling media and all that kind of stuff. Very, very smart thinking, very forward thinking. This was a la 20 years ago. So now we go flash forward. The Kroenke team is not just a team. They know they know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah. And I mean, Doug, Frank, Brendan, we all watch the SEC and we think of the big six, Alabama, Auburn, Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, LSU, because they're the only six that have won the SEC since 1963. Mm-hmm. Anybody want to take a stab at who you think will break that code outside of the big six? Most likely.
I think Ole Miss's window was last year. I think they're going to have a trouble. Look, Texas A&M, if they ever, reach their potential, they've got a shot. But I think that six is tough to crack. I mean, the Blue Bloods.
Yeah, Doug.
I agree. I like the Aggies roster, but how many years have we said that in August about Texas A&M? I don't mean to be unkind to the Aggies, but at some point you got to cash in on the talent that everyone agrees you're dealing.
And South Carolina, South Carolina could make rumbles this year, but we've heard that story before too.
Yeah, when we have, and now even Ellis Johnson said Monday, I worry about how South Carolina is going to respond to all of the pressure and expectations.
Right. Yeah.
We just commented on South Carolina and A&M, and in that any given Saturday, one of the segments that was I had forgotten, but South Carolina put a beat down on the Aggies last year.
Yeah.
What was it? 44 to 24 or something like that. Yeah. And
I'll tell you what, Doug, they hang on against us and they're in the playoff. That last second loss where that field goal went just wide. And look, I was in Williams-Brice. Yeah. That was a snake pit. Yeah. And that would have been huge for them to make the playoffs. But just like with Ole Miss, sometimes it's better. What is the old saying? It's better to be the hunter than be the hunted. And now they do have a bullseye on there. People are talking about them. So
and Beamer, if you didn't see it, it's worth pulling up in Netflix. he showed how the window in his office that overlooks Bryce Williams Stadium, and it's a cool view from the office. His kids figured out that it was like dry erase. They could take a dry erase marker and put messages on the window for him. His own kids were writing, either start winning games or you are dead.
His children or his football players?
His own children.
Oh, God. Well, I mean, I've got 4 of them, and they can be really critical.
They have
no filter.
Well, they have to go to elementary school and listen to all that.
Yeah, that's like the New York Giants GM's kids when they got mad at him because he didn't draft Jaden Daniels 2 years ago and said, "Dad, you just made the biggest mistake of your life on camera, on Hard Knocks."
Well, think about this. Did you all see what Ole Miss did with Pete Golding yesterday? Locked him into a contract, $2.6 million. He's the second highest paid coordinator in America behind Knowles, that left Ohio State to go to Penn State to be their defensive coordinator. And you talk about I know people in Tuscaloosa, they were telling me that Golding's kids on the school bus were getting it was awful. And look,
it's cruel.
But I think $2.6 million will make you feel a little bit better.
Yeah,
that's what happens.
Frank knows. I've told him before. I'm close friends with Curly Hallman's sweet daughter. She's a professional and very talented businesswoman in Kansas City. But she told me the story of the aftermath coming home after that 6 interception game in Jordan Hare.
Oh,
it is not easy being a family member of. I mean, I guess you don't feel sorry for them nowadays with $10 million a year, but that's a weird way to raise a family. You either become tough or you need a therapist, right?
No doubt. And Lynn Amity was our offensive coordinator that day. And I'm telling you what, the things that were written on his lawn that next morning was like, run the damn ball, Lynn.
Yeah. Well, have y'all ever seen some of the, like I went inside Jordan Hare and took this tour a few years ago with some potential donors that are now donors with Tigers Unlimited. And we went in this room. It's like a padded room. I would feel comfortable there on game day, but it's where like some of the wives will stay. The pressure is so intense that they can't even be around people. I mean, my mother's like that. She cannot be around people watching a game because you just get so emotional. I drive by Legion Field. My stomach is up in my throat still to this day. Brendan, we have Urban Meyer. I don't think there's a human being who detests losing more than Urban Meyer. I love him. 187 to 32.
There's a couple. Steve Spurrier's one of them.
Yeah.
They were actually going to do a fundraiser last year, and there was and they were going to do a talk, and the whole talk was going to be about how losing basically is just not in their matrix, like to a fault. And Urban talks about it. Spurrier not so much, but Urban, he says it's absolutely consumes him.
Yeah,
he can't even deal. Like, and it's really the reason why we won't see him probably coach again, regardless of what you think about Urban Meyer, regardless if you think his health scare was real or not. I will just say, from knowing him personally, I know and believe that it was real. And because when you talk to him enough times and you see the angst in his eyes when you talk about losing a game or what it was, it's just it's in your DNA. It's a part of your code, right? It's just,
you're saying it might be bad for his health at this point to coach again.
Yeah, he says that.
Yeah,
he basically says that, and he says his wife Shelly will not let him coach again because it's too much for him. And he says, I just can't unlock from it. And he's different now than it was. And coaches do that. You guys see that they become different, as they soften as they get away from the fishbowl, right? They soften as they get, and Urban tells stories, like coaches tell stories about how when they lose, even when they win, they don't want to go out in these towns.
Yeah.
They don't want to be seen, because they feel it more than anybody else because they're their own worst critic, right? So, which is a lot saying if you're walking in Gainesville with a losing season. But, that's the job.
Speaking of going out, Brendan, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's Gainesville. What's y'all's best steak place in Gainesville? What's the premier?
Spurrier's
Okay,
Gridiron
well,
Grill.
well,
100%.
that ruins my question. Let's say not Spurrier's steak place. They get a call simultaneously on two lines. It's Spurrier and it's Urban, and there's one table left. Who gets it in Gainesville?
Spurrier.
Yeah, I would think.
I think so.
I would think
Because he's now the I don't know his official title, but it's the liaison or whatever. And he represents. He goes out and represents the school. But I think Spurrier will always get a pass.
Coach and player.
He will always get a coach and player. Exactly right.
You know what's weird? I'm sure it's talked about a great deal in Gator Nation and by Buddy, his writing, but easily forgotten. But I mean, I got to tip my hat to Urban Meyer in the fact that it's one thing to come in and you still feel the shadow looming over you of the great things Spurrier did, and not just the winning and the championships, SEC especially, a couple of national titles, but also he was just beloved. And I've come to really, really like Steve Spurrier. When I hear him interviewed, and everybody needs to see that show, The Believer. Yeah, just really tells a beautiful story. So, but he was still coaching, am I right, at South Carolina in the SEC when Urban was getting rolling.
Well, Urban talks about playing him head to head and the pressure of winning.
Yeah, I mean, that's tough.
Let's bring in Mike Griffith, Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Dog Nation. Mike, sorry about the link issues here. I know you had your morning call. This is a true grit journalist. I love it. Michigan State, Sparty grad. Been watching you a long time. By the way, I loved your speech, Football Writers Association of America at Media Days. Without the writers, nobody can tell these stories like you can. This is Frank Duffy over in Tuscany, Doug Dean in Birmingham, and Brendan Martin, executive producer in Ocala, Florida. Welcome to our show.
I appreciate it, guys. And, I couldn't help but hearing about the old ball coach. One of the things I do is I do his award every year, the Steve Spurrier Award. We do that out of Gainesville. And, we started it about 4 years ago. I called Chris Doring and said, hey, man, I want to get this off the ground for the Football Writers Organization. And you're right about Steve Spurrier. Such an incredible personality. I mean, at 80 years old, he's still a newsmaker. He's still calling the elephant out in the room like nobody else. I mean, you look at what the guy did, it's unbelievable. I mean, he's one of college football's greatest, just period. Yeah. I mean, he wins a Heisman Trophy, is the greatest player in the game when he plays. He takes over a school that's never won an SEC title, and he wins 6 or 7 in 12 years, depending on how you want to count the first year. Really, the only thing the ball coach didn't do was win in Tallahassee, and I was at the Choke of the Doak, and there were a lot. I'm just going to tell you, he never said it, but I'll say it. There was a lot of suspect calls in that game that went against the Gators. It was really a lot of home cooking. They should have won that game. But, really the way he dominated rivalries, goes to South Carolina, has a winning record against Nick Saban, beats an Alabama team with South Carolina. If you want to know who the greatest coach of all time is, that's him. Now Saban's got the trophies, but when you talk about getting the most with your talent, Spurrier didn't have 14 out of 16 number one recruiting classes. Yeah. He beats Nick Saban at Alabama with a number one team at South Carolina. And he got a winning record. He also pounded him pretty good when Saban was at LSU. People in the Nick Saban fan club hate to be reminded that Spurrier kicked his ass a couple times. But what a great coach and what a great era for Florida football, right?
Yeah, well, if you rewind his career a little bit, look at what he did at Duke. And the chance he took to go to Duke, people don't get that. Like he went to Duke. Everyone's like, dude, it's suicide. You can't go. You can't win at Duke. You can't do anything there. And like he goes and wins at Duke, and not only wins but dominates. Like that's coaching. And I mean, you look at great coaches, you'll see that step before, right, guys? But like Spurrier, I mean, he had nobody. Like, let's go play football and let's go win. I don't care who it is. And he just doesn't, gets less about personnel and more about, we got to win. That's just
It's a sense of urgency, Mike. Mm-hmm. Mike, looking at the SEC, and I want Doug and Frank, I know we've got a list of questions. We all do. This is great having you on. I got my top 6 in no order: Georgia, Texas, Alabama, Florida, A&M, and Oklahoma. And that didn't even include LSU, South Carolina, Auburn, Tennessee, Ole Miss, and then Missouri. How strong is the league compared to what it was 5 or 10 years ago? You've been doing this a minute.
Well, I mean, it's deeper than it's ever been in history. I mean, you just saw the AP poll had 10 SEC teams in it. That was a record. Last year there were 9, right? I
Okay.
think there were 6 Big Ten teams, and I want to say that the vast majority, like 67% of the voters, don't have SEC ties. And where I'm going with this is, a lot of the politics that I know people don't want to get wrapped up in, but they're very important to note. The Big Ten trying to force a 9-game league schedule in the SEC without regard to the SEC's depth. I mean, I see people are celebrating Indiana. Oh, their first ever top 20. Indiana hasn't beaten a top 25 team. I mean, this is ridiculous. This sleight of hand pulled off by the College Football Playoff Selection Committee, headed by Michigan AD Ward Manuel. Sleight of hand with Jim Harbaugh cheating too. Michigan is just. I'm not going to say it, but what's happened with that program, the way they won their title, the way their leadership led the College Football Playoff Selection Committee was bad for college football. Period.
Yeah.
There was nothing good about the way Jim Harbaugh and Michigan won their national title. And last year's College Football Playoff Selection Committee was an embarrassment. And they cooked the books from the beginning by putting Indiana up high. And then after that, there was no reason to drop them, right? You've created a false value. And so here we sit watching playoffs with Indiana and SMU in there. And we got Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina could have beat any one of those teams by 2 or 3 touchdowns. It was a farce. And the seeding was political. And it led to really an unfortunate, and here's the thing. Clearly, Ohio State was playing the best football at the end of last year. Clearly. But there is no way in, Hades, that a team that finishes in 4th place in their league that loses a final home game should host a first-round playoff game. There is no way there is no way to qualify that. There is no explanation. There is no metric. You are a 4th-place team in a league. You have lost your last regular season game at home as a double-digit favorite, and you're hosting a first-round game. Now, I'm not saying that Tennessee would have beat them in Knoxville, but what I'm saying is that shouldn't have happened. And so you kind of picked a scab off this morning, but the reason I continue to complain about it and carp about it is people need to learn from it, right? Accountability is the first thing, and I'm holding these people accountable for that dark mark in our college football playoff history. 2, they got to change their behavior. They're not going to change their behavior unless they're reminded and they're called out and they're held accountable again and again and again.
Doug? Yeah.
First of all, Mike, a compliment and then a question. To me, there are a very few sports writers, people on air who are in what I call independent thinkers, willing to spar with Feinbaum and not back down. And you're one of those. And I appreciate the fact that you speak your mind, and that you're on some issues, you're a contrarian because you look at the information and the data and go where it leads you. My question is, and you're certainly qualified to talk about what might be expected from the Georgia Bulldogs this year. I think Kirby has earned the, if you will, the dean of the SEC coaching for a lot of reasons, and one of which is Saban retiring. But he had his moments against Saban when it mattered a lot. But if you look at, to me, schedules in September matter, and with Stockton, people uncertain about what his ceiling is until they see more a body of work this season. If you look at September for Georgia, and I don't mean to dismiss Tennessee, that 3rd game on the road, but I think Georgia is going to be, early season at least, significantly more capable, even on the road in Knoxville. And then you get an open date before the Crimson Tide comes to town. So do you think that sets up for Georgia to be, is it fair to make Georgia maybe not the heavy favorite, but at least an argument against Texas and possibly Alabama as the odds-on favorites to win the SEC?
Yeah, it's a tough call because we still don't know about the quarterback and what he's going to do under the bright lights. And he's had a really tough curve. I mean, Gunnar was pressed into action in the SEC championship game, and he didn't really play that great. I mean, the running game and the defense kicked in, and he actually threw a pick with 2.5 minutes left that probably should have got him beat if the Texas guy knew how to return an interception. There was really a lot of green in front of him. Should have been a pick 6, but he's a gutsy kid. He's a high school legend here. He set several records. He's a good character guy. He's a hard worker. He's a program guy. Kirby wants to trust in the process. You want to believe that this can still happen in America. And you talk about Carson Beck. Well, Carson Beck's a first-round talent. Carson Beck's an NFL quarterback. Gunner's not. Okay, he's just not. He's not as tall. The release isn't as fast. The passes aren't as accurate.
Neither was Stetson, though.
Well, we can table that conversation for another day. But Stetson also had a defense that was the best that college football had seen since 1986 Oklahoma. And if you're afforded the opportunity to wait until late in the third quarter to score a touchdown, you can win a lot of games. And that's pretty much what happened in the national title game. Georgia didn't score a touchdown until there was about 4 minutes left in the third quarter, and that was Bryce Young on the other side of the ball. If that's not a legacy defense, the game's probably over with by then. And if you want to reflect back on the SEC championship game, that didn't end too well for Georgia when Stetson didn't play well. They lost 41-24 with that legacy defense. So you made your point on Stetson. My counterpoint is they were fortunate that Brock Bowers, who's arguably the greatest tight end in the history of the game, already. He was recently named to the tight end first team All-American AP team over the last 100 years. He's already been named the best tight end in the NFL in his first season with 3 crappy quarterbacks on a bad team. I mean, the guy was the modern day Red Grange. I mean, he was the galloping ghost of the two. And you can't even define it. And then, oh, by the way, Ladd McConkey turned out to be pretty good too. And that guy James Cook, he just signed for $48 million. And you might see some first round guys that were on that offensive line. So listen, Stetson Bennett is finally, the lights come on and he might have a chance. He's in another perfect situation. He's got the horseshoe up his butt. Stafford with a bad backup Garoppolo, a team owner that believes in him. 3 years in, he's got another shot. This could be, and he could hit it, guys. He could hit it this year, just to be clear. But I digress. Stetson Bennett had great mobility. He could run. He was quick. He was fast. Okay, the guys he was throwing to, the McConkeys, the Bowers. Georgia's got good receivers and good tight ends, but I don't think Brock Bowers or McConkey's coming out that ton. They got good tailbacks, but I don't see James Cook, Kenny McIntosh for that matter. Yeah. I see pretty good talent. I see a pretty good offensive line. There's more parity now. 21 and 22 was the end of pre-NIL era. You could stockpile talent. You could keep guys that would have transferred out in year 2 and year 3. They stuck around for year 4. They didn't want to sit out a year, right? That's over. So there's more parity now. And in the SEC, there's more depth than there is in the Big. It's not a top-heavy conference. There's not a Purdue to beat 66-0. That team doesn't. Vanderbilt beat Alabama last year. My goodness. I mean, hell froze over and pigs were flying. So, I mean, things in the SEC now are very NFL-like. And so now let's go back to your question. Gunnar Stockton is a good college quarterback, but how many quarterbacks in the SEC are better? Number one. And what does he do really well? I mean, he throws a pretty accurate ball. His release is okay. He's got some mobility. So here's the question. When you play Alabama and you play Texas, the two teams that can go toe-to-toe with talent, and it comes down to that quarterback, that's what we don't know. Now, Tennessee has a pretty salty defense, and Josh Heupel's there for a reason. So he's not a bad coach. He's beaten Alabama and Florida 2 out of the last 3 years. I mean, that's, you're like, wait a minute, Tennessee, they're just not, they've beaten Alabama and Florida. I'm going to repeat that. Tennessee has beaten Alabama and Florida 2 out of the last 3 years. That's a big deal. Yeah. So, and Georgia's won this game 8 games in a row, 8 years in a row now. The record is 9 in the series. That roulette wheel keeps coming up red. Georgia should win, but you got a capable program and a raucous, intimidating stadium. It's Gunnar Stockton's first road start. That will be a very good test. We'll learn a lot. But Alabama, I mean, to me, guys, this team's scary. They got 4 starting offensive linemen back. Loaded. They got 2 of the best receivers. I think their quarterback room is better than Georgia's quarterback room. I don't think their defense is as good. Kalen DeBoer is a fantastic coach. But Alabama's not played between the hedges since 2016. For all of Kirby's losses to Alabama, none of them have come between the hedges. Georgia brings a 31, will be a 33-game home win streak into that game with Alabama. That sets the table.
Frank, I wish Mike would be more forthcoming. I love that, Mike. You are making people get out of their comfort zone. You will definitely be back if you'll come back with us. And Frank, jump in here from Tuscany. This is great stuff. I absolutely love it.
Well, ciao, Mike, and tell my good buddy BA hello for me. My road tripping pal. I took Brandon and Brian Hoyt and a few other good dogs down to Baton Rouge, and 2018 in my RV for the game when Joe Burrow was in his first year at LSU. Had a great time. By the way, we all should be so lucky in having a down year and having an SEC championship under our belt. That's what Kirby has basically put together in Athens. I have to ask you, we all know the bread and butter of Georgia's strength and their power is their defense. Mm-hmm. Where do you see the depth of this defense? And how do you see it playing out, to your point about having to go play the hobnail boot game up in Knoxville, Tennessee?
We just stepped you.
Yeah. How do those silver britches go up there? And how do you see the defense playing early, which we all know most defenses play really well early? How do you see Georgia's defense and their depth going into this year?
Yeah, it's probably the best. I think it's their best defense since 2022. And again, Jaylen Carter, my gosh, he was an Ndamukong Suh of the last 15 years. He was just probably should have been on this all-time All-American team, even though I know that there were some other issues. But the guy is just unbelievable. And now he's the best defensive tackle in the NFL. So when I say that, remember what I said earlier, that was the end of the pre-NIL teams that could be stockpiled. This is as good as it can get in today's era. And remember, they lost an edge, Damon Wilson, to Missouri. They could be even better if had they not lost that guy. I think they're really good. I think KJ Bolden, I love this guy at safety, such a playmaker. He came in as a freshman impact player. They're 3 deep. They got 3 NFL cornerbacks for 2 spots. They can play one at the nickel. Go ahead, go dime on them. They're built for Tennessee. Josh is so good with the hurry up offense. Kirby's the best with the hurry up defense. You've seen that Tennessee hasn't been able to out scheme Georgia with that. I don't want to call it a trick offense or whatever, because it's football and that's ingenious. You could call it Spurrier's offense that if you wanted to.
Yeah.
I think he's done a great job. But Georgia is built to beat that kind of offensive team, and we've seen that over and over. That's the one team Josh Heupel and Tennessee haven't been able to solve. Christian Miller, he looks like a potential first-round defensive lineman. They got a freshman, and anytime you say freshman and defensive lineman, everybody kind of goes, yeah, sure. But
yeah,
I mean, this dude Elijah Griffin. But the real weapon, the guy that I'm so excited about, that New York just called the Justice League wants him to help save the world, is this Chris Cole guy. This Chris Cole guy. This guy that's about 6'3", 250, that can rush the edge, that can cover tight ends. He's the best athlete on the team. Just an absolute freak. And you thought Jalen Walker was good, first-round pick of the Falcons. This guy's got a higher upside, and he's ready to play. So, and they're good everywhere else. Don't get me wrong. There's other guys that are going to play in the NFL in that defense, but those 4 guys are special. And when you've got special, you brought up Tennessee, right? I covered 98 Tennessee. All I need to say is 27. If I just put the number 27 out there, you know what I'm talking about. Everything around 27 was combustible. You put 27 on the field, and there was literally like a glow and fire, and everything that touched him caught fire. When you've got a catalyst like that, hopefully, and that's what Georgia has in Chris Cole.
Yeah. And wait, one last quick question: how in the hell did the Falcons pass up on Jaylen Carter? How did that happen?
Well, like I
said,
I'm
a Saints fan. I don't care. But I'm a Saints fan.
Like I said, there was a lot of other things going on, and it's pretty well documented that there was some off the field issues going on with fast cars and things like that around Georgia and
I remember.
Jaylen. Yeah, and I think the Falcons, that being an Atlanta team, that's a storyline that probably would have followed him much closer. And he ultimately, all those things got settled out of a really tragic night. But I think that's why, and I think sometimes NFL teams can overthink it. But we, to be frank, we are in an era where we do need to be sensitive to these kind of things. I mean, there's been some. I mean, I hate to say it, there's been some NFL guys that have done some really bad things that should have been held accountable. And I'll leave that to Commissioner Goodell. You can be your own judge, but some of these cats got larger than life and needed to be, so these are things that the NFL has to be sensitive to. You don't want distractions. And it's worked out well for Carter. He's gone to a place where there's other Georgia. I think they got 7 guys on the Philadelphia D. It's ridiculous. And he's in a place right now with some players around him, that I think Jalen's really, I think he's grown, and I think he's really developed into a good, really good special
anchor for that defense going forward for a decade. Wow.
Mike, what's your take? I'm in Gainesville or Ocala down here. I don't know if you keep up too much with what's going on. I'm sure you do. But, Lagway obviously game changer for Florida. Obviously makes a difference. Last year he comes in to change the course of Billy Napier's history down in Florida, which he was more than on the hot seat prior to that moment. But you go into this year, there's speculation. I mean, he hasn't practiced a full practice. He's definitely hurt. A lot of people are wondering how hurt. How good is Florida in your opinion without Lagway?
Oh man, that's a great question. And Billy Napier's turnaround is really, to me, the biggest coaching turnaround I've ever seen mid-season. Much less in this day and age of social media and perception overtaking reality. I mean, look, there were calls made. You know it if you follow this program. I mean, this was going to happen. There was going to be a coaching change. There were guys that get in line. Lane Kiffin, line one. I mean, he couldn't get him, but there were calls being made. And what great poetry that Napier in Florida beat Ole Miss and knocked them out of the playoff ultimately. Like, oh, this is the guy you wanted to hire to replace, but the guy you just beat with less of a team, right? So you got to love what the Gators are doing and the Swamp coming alive the last 4 games of the season. And it is DJ Lagway, and Billy talked about the way the culture changed in the building. And that building has something to do with it too. I've seen it happen twice at Georgia. You move kids into a new building and that becomes the sense of community. Florida's really built off of that $90 million, $95 million building they've got right there. That's been huge.
Abner Center, yeah.
Way overdue, I might add, as it was for Georgia on the facilities upgrade. I've got questions, right? I mean, because DJ is such a phenomenal leader, and you see him in person, and you got to see the guy in person to appreciate the tree leg stumps he's got for legs.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy's and he runs and throws the most catch. Honestly, I hate to say it, but it's DJ Lagway or bust, man. You give him DJ Lagway, potential playoff team. You take him away, coach could be looking for another job by the end of the year.
It's interesting what you just said, and I don't mean to interrupt, but I was in some smart conversations, the other day with some people that, obviously I'm not going to name who they were, but let's just say they might have not played quarterback a couple of times, and they were discussing how like Lagway works because they know his schedule as far as working out. They said Lagway's a little too big. He's a little too robust. He works out a little too much. A little wear and tear could be part of coming out of Texas football, kind of coming out of that. But the knock on him was like, hey, you gotta lean out a little bit and not push yourself so hard in the weight room. What's your take on something like that? Because he's fairly mobile. But do you think that wear and tear, pushing yourself too hard in the weight room and doing these things over and over? We've talked to some very smart doctors in here before who've talked about that. He's a young guy. He shouldn't be having all of these issues.
Yeah. Everybody's playing hurt, it seems.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and there's such a fine line, when you look at the athletes of today compared to yesteryear and the training methodology and the legal supplements, that are fine to take, and we've really, modern day medicine's amazing. You hate to see a kid punished for working too hard, but to your point, I mean, Texas high school football is big business, and it didn't get any bigger than where DJ came from. I mean, he was a hell of a player at I believe the highest level in Texas football, if I'm not mistaken. He was playing
6A,
one of the largest classifications out there. So, and the other part that I think complicates it is that, and I don't know if this is the case for DJ, so I don't want to speak out of turn, but a lot of these guys kind of have their own team now. When you know that a guy is going to be like Carson Beck, case in point, they've known from a long time ago that Carson Beck, I mean, heck, he was a Florida baseball committee. He was an Alabama football. This guy's been on the map for a long time. And you get a lot of these coaches and managers around you that want to manage your career. And then you go to college, and it used to be that okay, now you're going to listen to these team doctors. Now you're not so fast. I've got my panel of experts back home and my trainers, and this is what they tell me to do. And I'm not saying that's what's happened with Lagway. But then there's changes, right? Even Georgia, Kirby Smart changed up his off-season conditioning program. Now, this is a guy, think about this. This is a guy with 2 national titles and 3 SEC championships and 3 straight undefeated regular seasons. Spurer and Saban, they didn't do that. Back-to-back national titles. Spurer, Saban, they didn't do that. And he's changing things up. As Kirby says, if it ain't broke, find a way to fix it. Because he saw that one thing. Well, we got a lot of foot injuries. Let's keep them off their feet. And they've changed it up. So there's a lot of different ways. The reason I'm kind of splattering all this against the wall is because there's a lot of possibilities for what's happened with DJ Lagway.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, though, the one thing I think we would all agree is we can't blame this kid, because he's only doing whatever he's being told to do. He's doing it 100 or 110, as you hear these coaches. So I think the world of DJ Lagway. I think the way he changed the culture. I think the confidence that his teammates have. This is special. Every team doesn't have this. This doesn't happen every year. It doesn't happen every 10 years. When you get a guy that can affect the team like DJ, that can lead, and as Billy Napier said last year, that can change the culture in a building, right? And so I'm gonna transition here. Is Arch Manning going to be able to do that at Texas? That's my question. I know Arch can throw it. I know he throws the ball. I see the video and I hear music playing. I mean, this is beautiful. This
band's playing.
Beautiful. This is art. We need to put this guy in a museum. He's incredible. He was bred for this. I mean, it's literally, this is beautiful. But does it translate? Can it get Texas? I mean, Colin Cowherd, he's so great with the hot takes. He's right. USC and Cowboy. These guys let you. How did Georgia beat? Toughness. They're tough. They punched him in the nose. Texas wanted to make sure the Lamborghini was parked safely in the parking lot. Georgia came to win a game. Can the Texas culture change? I know Arch can win a Heisman. I know Arch can be number one. But can he change a culture? And that's the other, to me, we got Florida mystery team, boom or bust, right? We got Georgia, the standard. Can they maintain? We got LSU. Can Brian Kelly get it done? What's the latest injury with Nussmeier? What bad luck is going to hit the Tigers next, right? You got Alabama. Can DeBoer get it done his way? Everybody's having fun and high-fiving, right? And now we have Texas. And can Arch Manning, not Sark, because Sark's proven he can't be enough of a difference maker. Does he have the catalyst on the team? And now I don't say that lightly. Very few coaches can do it without it. Kirby's one of them, Saban obviously, Dabo as well. But can Arch Manning be that? Because that's on his shoulder. Let's just have Arch solve this whole tariff trade deficit too, because there is so much pressure on this guy. It's unbelievable.
Mike, you're on a roll. Look, if we can zoom out and look at the entire SEC, I read this week that the nightmare scenario, the more I study it, I'm not so sure this is a year it's impossible. The nightmare would go related to the 12-team playoff, that there's not a dominant team. There can be one dominant team that wins the SEC, so they're in and they get a bye. But what if you have there's not a team with fewer than 3 regular season losses? And you look at, to me, Alabama's loaded, LSU's loaded for bear. They've got the most experienced returning QB. We already talked about Georgia and Texas. Somebody can throw a fifth in if they want, fifth or sixth. But there are also other teams that look equipped this year to beat all 4 of those big dogs that have loaded rosters. And you don't see but a couple or 3 proven, experienced quarterbacks, and I really don't count Arch Manning in that, even though I expect a big year from Arch. So what's the committee going to do if you've got only 1, 2, or fewer loss regular season SEC teams?
Yeah, and let me tell you, that scenario gets a lot worse if Clemson beats LSU, Ohio State beats Texas, and Florida State or Wisconsin upset Alabama, because now all of a sudden you've got transitive properties working against you. That's what kept Georgia out a couple of years ago. Alabama, ironically enough, not just beat them in the SEC championship game, but lost to Texas at home by 10 points earlier in the year, and that transitive property counted Georgia out. So that's how a program that had won 29 straight games and lost 1 game by 3 points didn't make the playoff. Was that non-conference loss Alabama had at home to Texas by 10 points. So those non-conference games are big. I do feel more confident in the committee with Ivan Maisel and Mark D'Antonio joining that committee. I think we have a lot more common sense. I don't think you're going to have any former, any chairman bully anybody, i.e. Ward Manuel, Michigan last year, which I just highly suspect, just based on the question and answers. He would do the I asked the guy, this is a really simple question. I said, when you're comparing these teams head to head for positions, Do you ever, doing the eyeball test, do you ever consider who would win if they played each other? Nope, that's not a part of the criteria. Are you kidding me, man? What a chicken.
Yeah. Let me bring in.
I almost said that word on the air. Oh, what a chicken crap answer.
Yeah.
We don't consider whether Indiana would actually beat this team head. We got these numbers on paper here. Even though we're supposed to be experts, even though we come together to watch these games, even though there's this group thing, we're not smart enough to be able to watch two teams play independently and figure out which one we think. We can't rely on our own brains. We would rather conveniently use these metrics that we choose. That was the problem.
The Vegas spread is readily available.
Yeah, that's. But let me bring in Brad Bellamy, Mike, our general manager, Landers Ford, one of our sponsors, and he's a big Alabama fan and Memphis fan, and Mike Griffith, Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Brad, I know you've got questions, and we're going to talk about Landers after this part. But you've got questions. Alabama last year and South Carolina and Ole Miss all left out. Mike, one of the better writers. Let's get some Q&A going.
Yeah, good morning, guys. Enjoying the conversation you guys have been having. For me, one of the things is the early schedule this year. We have a lot of matchups interconference that are going to help determine, I think, a lot of how the playoffs work out. If Arkansas pulls the upset over Notre Dame, that's one that I think will help elevate the SEC to where if they do have more 3-loss teams, the argument's there. What do you think are the most pivotal matchups? We obviously got a couple of obvious ones, but some of maybe the ones we're not talking about that are kind of pivotal matchups that the SEC has that might be the difference maker of a team getting in versus not getting in because of the early non-conference schedules.
I think Texas A&M Notre Dame's a big game. Last year Notre Dame beat Texas A&M in the opener, and I think that really obviously boosted Notre Dame. They were able to overcome that loss to Northern Illinois and still make the playoffs, which, hey, it is what it is, right? It's a new world. That to me is one of the bigger games. I think Alabama FSU, I think sets the tone. For the Crimson Tide as well as for the ACC. I do think Florida State. I don't know about back, but I do think they're going to be competitive again. Last year was obviously they were still broken from that 65-3 loss to Georgia when half their team quit on the NIL, unintended consequence of NIL. So I think Alabama, Florida State's a game I look at. Texas A&M, Notre Dame. A lot of times though it's games we don't expect. And there's an unknown. You've almost got to budget for the unknown, right? I know you do that at your dealership too. You've got your expenses, but then there's also that budget, that right. Miscellaneous, right? Something's gonna happen. Somebody's gonna run into a car in the parking lot they're not supposed to. So there's gonna be something that's gonna happen, and I look at that for college football. I think that the point that was brought up about the 3-loss SEC team potential, that's really real. But I did a study last year, and I want to say it was around 50% was the winning percentage for ranked SEC teams in road SEC games. And if you compared it to other years, it was typically 75 or 80%. Last year, that showed the parity of what that home field. Again, Vanderbilt beating Alabama at home. That was a moment. That was a big moment in SEC history in terms of parity and what can happen. So where teams play, when they play them, injuries, how the schedule makers work. My goodness, Texas, they got a bye week before they play Georgia. How does that happen? I don't get it. It's just, so there's a lot of those things, a lot of those hidden pockets, and I haven't studied your question. If I did, I could probably find a few more, but those would be the games and the circumstances that come to mind.
Yeah. Mike, look, I know you've been on with us long, and this is great. We're going to definitely bring you back on again. You are putting out tons of data, and I'm going to go back. I'll be watching this show on the way up to go trout fishing on the Spring River where the water's 57 degrees and it'll be 150 on land up here. But how do people follow you and keep up with all your great work? Because like Roman Harper, you're in the exclusive club now. You're a truth broker. Love hear what you have to say. Thank you so much.
Well, listen, first of all, I can speak with this sort of conviction because I covered Alabama football, because Gene Stallings and his coaches brought me into those offices. I had the opportunity to sit down with those players because Tennessee and Phil Fulmer had open practices, because John Chavis took that call and Woody McCorvey, because Michigan State and Mark D'Antonio for 4 years and Pat Narduzzi. I've been fortunate to cover a lot of really great programs and coaches, that were willing to spend a little bit extra time and explain why things were the way they are. And Kirby, doesn't take a lot of extra time, but I kind of already know the book. And a lot of the things that Kirby says are from the mouth of Gene Stallings, hence Paul Bear Bryant at one point. Yep. Kirby's a throwback, and he speaks football. And I hear that all the time when Kirby's smart. Hey, listen to what he says, listen to what he doesn't say. So a lot of my opinions are I wish I'm not just some football genius. I'm not. I've just listened to a lot of really smart coaches and tried to pay really close attention to the best. And now the association with Coach Spurer, I mean, he's amazing. He's playing chess and everybody's playing checkers, So, but my work, guys, I appreciate you asking that. Atlanta Journal-Constitution is ajc.com. Dognation.com is our free website. We've got a ton of content on there. Did a story this morning on how Kirby in Georgia are coming up with their own hype in lieu of not having it. They don't play an exciting opener like Texas. They don't have Arch Manning like Texas. So Kirby ingeniously has come up with his own hype machine with this fire, passion, and energy mantra that's like an everyday thing. On Twitter, it's at Mike Griffith 32 though, and enjoy doing the show. It's a really cool format you guys have going here, and really appreciate it, Rob. Thanks for the time.
You are awesome. Always welcome back. Jim Jaggers, the best weatherman in Memphis, was a Michigan State grad forever. You are a great Spartan, but talk to you soon. Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys.
Go Green.
Tell Brandon hi.
Love it. Brad, tell us real quick what's happening out there at Landers Ford. Man, I tell you, we could go for days with some of the content, but it's hot, and you know what? Never a bad time to look for a new car, truck, or SUV.
Well, especially because we got all these Expeditions and Explorers back from the golf tournament last weekend, guys. So we got X-Plan pricing on all of our Explorers and Expeditions that were part of the PGA Tour event in Memphis last week. They're all here, ready to go. Already sold, 10 of them over the last few days, and got a lot on the board already tagged for customers. So best selections are to come in now and take advantage of the deal, and also the availability. Not a lot of Expeditions and Explorers are out there amongst other dealer inventories right now, and so we have them here to sell, and really excited. Man, what a great tournament it was last weekend. Great for the city. Talked to Joe Tomic, who runs it. He said it was the best attendance they've had since 2019. The excitement there, another playoff event. So, really great honor to Fred Smith as part of the deal on Saturday, and the partnership between FedEx. We love supporting St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Every vehicle we sell that was part of the golf tournament, we donate a portion of that to St. Jude. After this year, it'll be 20 years. Landers has given over $1 million to St. Jude through this golf tournament. Wow. And that's separate from the stuff we do with the marathon and other things. So, great organization here in Memphis that just blesses the entire world. What Danny Thomas was able to do, 50 years ago is just incredible. How much a man's vision can really make a difference and save so many lives. So, it's a blessing. It's great to be a part of it. And man, we got a lot of things working here right now that we're really excited about, and August is going to be a great month for us. So
it is.
Thanks for having me.
Oh yeah.
Nice to see Frank relaxed. You got a cigar going on this morning too, Frank? I mean, you got it all set up over there.
It's like 4 p.m. over there.
Is it just in Italy?
Yeah, I'm about the cocktail hour here. I do have to ask you a question. What is the base cost of a Ford Puma? Because I had one of my Italian buddies sideswipe my rental car, but I did get the full insurance. I got the Big Mac insurance.
Full insurance.
So we might have to have some research before this is over.
I don't know. Probably the same as the cost of a Chevy Adidas over there. We don't have Ford Pumas in the U.S.
I know.
It's a European. It's like the Kuga, and there's some other products that they have.
The old Mercury Cougars running around here. That's crazy.
And hey, look, Brad and Doug and Frank and Brendan, this has been an unbelievable show. I mean, it really is. And you know what, Doug? It'll make you a better golfer if you go get you one of those Landers Fords.
I'm going to be talking to Brad. I'll ride off from the corporate jungle at the end of this year, and I need to look good in a Ford truck, Brad.
I agree, man. Get you taken care of. Guys, have y'all watched the SEC documentary yet on Netflix?
A lot of it.
Rob, have you seen any of it yet?
I have not. I've seen excerpts.
Okay.
I'm going to watch it all this next week.
So I started watching it over this past week. A couple of years ago, Clark Lee came and spoke at the Touchdown Club. Yeah. They actually have a snippet of the Memphis Touchdown Club football he received in the documentary.
There you go.
Oh wow.
That's cool.
Yeah. By the way, expletive warning when you watch that show.
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah, it's definitely not for children.
Yeah, you find out real fast the coaches that like to throw out the expletives pretty frequently, and the ones that don't. So
I'm a distinguished potty mouth, so it doesn't bother me.
All right, hey guys, we got to wrap up. Unbelievable show. Thank you all. Hey, check out all of our sponsors: Lights Out Gummies, Hewlett and Dunn, Rumble Boxing, the great folks at Landers Ford. All of it sidelines.live. Among us. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks for watching. See you
Have
Monday.
fun in Tuscany, Duff.
You got it, buddy.
enjoy it. See you guys.
Appreciate it, everybody.